Welcome to Stepping Stones, L&D Career Journeys Explained, the podcast that shares the how of fellow L&Ders. I'm your host, Christina Rogers, and today, all the way from Sweden, I have Linnéa. Oh my gosh, I already did butcher it in my head.
Sjögren.
Gideon. I'm so good at my own phonetic notes here. I know, it's so good. Thank you, Linnéa, for jumping in, by the way.
Happy to help.
I hate butchering names. I just hate it, but I butchered it anyway. What do we call it? Self-fulfilling prophecy. And I will be talking to Mariana later about how I not only butchered it when I'm speaking with her, but I butchered it even with you in person. So that's really sad. Anyway, Linnéa is here as my guest, and she is a freelance learning producer. She looks to new things through the lens of her motto, and I love this motto: how hard can it be? And I think I've used that motto a few times and it's gotten me in trouble, but I love the fact that she lives off and with this. She usually describes herself as a Swiss Army knife, very appropriate. She is not the perfect tool just for one thing, but she's pretty dang awesome for doing a lot of things. In May of 2020, she decided to quit her safe job. Yes, right in the middle of the pandemic. But it was with good reason. It was to start her own company. And what she does is she sells her L&D skill set out there into the real world, not only clients in Sweden, but worldwide. She is a speaker, and she was known for speaking at the Welcome into the Awesome conference back in June of 2021. And her session was titled How to Create Content That's Fire Without Burnout. That is a fantastic title, by the way.
Thank you.
For those of you who are interested in seeing this woman in action, I will be posting the link itself so you can go check her out. I get a kick out of that. It's really awesome. So in addition, if that wasn't enough, Linnéa has also, starting in February of 2022, became one of the co-organizers of the GLDC, and that's the Global Learning and Development Community. And you can find her as well on mygldc.com. And yes, we will get into other ways that we can follow her and connect with her later on toward the end of our episode today. But
yes, I will make stalking me easy for you.
Perfect. In case anybody was in dire need of such, she will entertain you with that information. So welcome, Linnéa. It is so good to have you. So aside from making this amazing mark on the L&D world that you do through, well, I won't get into it, but you'll be sharing with everything that you do. And I'm saying she will be sharing because this is in addition to that lovely intro I have for you. I invited Linnéa here to share her story because it's one that has her create her own rules on how she plays in the L&D game. Okay, and it's really cool. I want that her journey inspire and give confidence to those of you in the present or future desires of stepping out into deeper waters and really venturing out on your own. So I'm sure without a doubt that we're going to learn a lot here. So with that said, Linnéa, please share with us, how did you get started in L&D?
Yeah, so I think there are two things you need to know about me. One is I'm hey, look at me, can I get on this stage kind of person. So I never have the problem other people have that might have got into training where they've been shy or they've been reluctant to like stand up in a classroom or anything like that. I'm more like, finally a stage. And so a lot of the struggles you might have getting into L&D, I have not had because of that. But that is also maybe something that has driven me into L&D initially. Yes. So I, like, where can it be? Maybe 2007, 2006-ish, I applied for my first sort of trainer role at my current job where I was working part-time while being a student. And
Nice.
I don't have any official training in learning and development. I mean, I've taken courses like a few weeks here and there at some universities and stuff, and some, you know, MOOCs and some LinkedIn Learning and some, but nothing, not like the official
Formal.
real
Yes.
deal. So I don't have a degree in L&D in any way, but they were advertising for like, do you want to be a classroom trainer, facilitator? And this was the Swedish Underground. And I was like, yeah, I want to do that. That sounds fun. And before that, I had been involved at previous jobs with onboarding and like things that I would not have considered training then.
Yeah.
But when looking back, I can be like, I kind of did training, right? I'd been politically active, so I'd been out in a lot of classrooms speaking to groups about politics and the world. And so it's not like I hadn't been in a classroom before, but that was my first official like L&D role.
Nice.
And so I kind of quickly was thrown into that, and had the
Yes.
opportunity also to help, you know, create or, you know, update some content and do things like that. But I was a very appreciated trainer, but I didn't know a lot about learning.
Right.
So I would say I was more of an entertainer than a trainer, perhaps, in a sense, right?
Right.
I mean, all my students did, like, they aced their exams and they went on to work without having problems, but I wasn't thinking about learning. Right. In that sense, like I didn't have a concept of what that was. Right. I was just like, training, that's important and it's fun and I'm doing it. Yeah. I mean, we did have times when we had students that needed extra help. And at those times, maybe I would, but I didn't think of it in the terms of learning as I do now. Right. And that was a part-time role. So they would like call you in when they needed you. Oh, okay. So it wasn't like full-time training. I mean, sometimes it was like full-time training because for months you could have like before summer when you have all your summer associates come in. So everyone else can go on holiday. Because in Sweden, we have a minimum of 5-week paid holiday per year. Yes. So it's way more holiday. So we need way more summer workers. So that would be like a very intense training period. And so for a couple of months, maybe I was training full time, but otherwise, sometimes I wouldn't be training for like 2 months. So it would like be very really fluctuate. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, my job was still like my part-time job as the ticket set vendor and customer service. Like, wow. Okay. Because that was the part-time job I had when I was a student. And that was what I was teaching people how to be like and so it was, you know, customer service, security, payment systems, all of the protocols, all of that stuff. And so I loved it. I loved it so much. But then you can't have a part-time job forever, right? And so I finished my studies. I have a degree in gender studies. Okay. And cultural studies. So nice. Specifically, and or musicology. But no. So I applied for a full-time job within the same organization, and I got a leadership job there 2009. And then I was no longer able to train as well because I wasn't dispensable in the same way. Like I couldn't go back and forth between doing that and being a manager, because it was a very like involved management. Because, you know, you would take care of like someone calling in sick and finding a replacement, and someone having like a security incident and having to go there and fix it, and scheduling, and so it was not possible for me to continue doing that, and it was like a really hard choice. But I did choose to go into the leadership route. But I missed it. I missed it so much. I actually asked my manager at some point, like, is there no way we can sort of get a little bit of training? Right. But there never was. But I did do like, you know, introduction days and, you know, things like that. And some of the things I learned in the classroom, I found very useful as a manager. Yeah. But that wasn't training, right? So
it's not the same.
Yeah, so 2011, I guess, I
Mhm.
was offered another role. It was more
Okay.
of an administrative / project management role. And
Okay.
so in that, I actually got to be on the other side. So I got to be someone who contacted the training department and said, hey, we need training on this.
Oh, okay.
So
Little,
it was
not the same role, but yeah.
no, but it was very insightful, I think, to be on
Yeah.
that side and to have those discussions and to feel like I'm so clear about what I want and they're just looking at me like I'm crazy. And since
Oh,
I've already
wow.
done it, I'm super arrogant, right? So I'm like, just fix it. I could have done it, so you should be able
Right.
to do it, blah blah. Horrible person. And no, but we did actually have a kind of a conflict. They were like, why are you
Yeah.
doing this to us? And we were like, I was like, because there was this software that they had for your phones that you're
Okay.
supposed to use for like controlling things, and it was like a 2-day course, very
Hmm.
long, and there was one part of it that managers used, and
Okay.
I was trying to put together a training program for new managers,
Yes.
and I was like, I don't want them to learn the entire software because they're not going to use it. They're just going to
Right.
use this part. I
Uh-huh.
don't want
The whole
any
thing. Yeah.
part. Yeah.
Right.
And they were like, no, you have to have all of it. If you don't understand all of it, you're not going to understand any of it. And I was like, I've worked with this myself. I used to be a manager, it wasn't that long ago. I don't agree. And and that became like a conflict. And
Right.
looking back, I could have handled that a lot better because I was really arrogant, like I could have done this myself. So why don't you do it?
Live and learn.
Yeah. But I did also get to, because there were a lot of things that we wanted in the training program for managers that they could not supply us with, but they were things that
Oh,
I
no.
knew.
Yeah.
So I would then do that training and sort of take care of that program for new managers. And I also made like guidelines for having like introduction days, etc., for new hires.
Yeah.
So I did get to do like some training,
Right.
even if it wasn't officially training. I was somehow involved in training, and I was very happy about that.
Nice.
And by the side of that, I said briefly that I was into like politics and political
Yes.
activity.
Yes.
So while this was happening, on the other side, I was sort of doing training for the political organization that I was in.
Yes.
So, training people to talk to voters
Nice.
during the election, helping people. And that is also when I started doing the first like online training. So
Okay.
in 2011, I think sometime there,
Yeah.
I did my first like instructional videos with PowerPoint and a screen recording tool called Webinaria. But I splurged. I bought a real microphone. I was trying to be profesh, right? So
Yes.
and it was very appreciated. And at that time,
Right.
the expectations were a lot lower. So
Yes. A little different.
it did meet expectations at that point. And now if I look back at it, I'm like,
Yeah.
but still, yeah. So I did sort of, and we created like a training program for people who are going to work at different kinds of events, and I was doing some classroom sort of stuff, and it was an official training in the same way because it was volunteer run, and
right.
But I was honing my skill, if you will, right? On
Absolutely. Getting that experience.
And then I think it was 2013 when I just, the ball dropped, right? And I was like,
yeah,
this is the thing I enjoy the most. I love working with training. I love being in the classroom. I love helping people learn. I love, facilitating. Why am I doing anything else? Like, why? Because I had a very stressful job, like lots of projects and lots of admin, and I felt kind of underappreciated, as you always do in one of those roles, because nobody knows exactly what you're doing, and you feel like you're keeping the whole ship afloat, and nobody knows exactly what you're doing, and so nobody really understands how appreciated you should be. and therefore it's just very stressful. And so if you're in an admin position, you have my sympathy. I know that nobody appreciates you as they should, and I'm sorry. You're amazing. But so that's, and I kind of, I guess I'd come to a point with, because I had been promised another role, and when that, they sort of retracted that offer because they were doing organizational changes, because you know how it is, right? We reorganize.
Oh,
You
yes.
get a new manager and you get a
Oh, yes.
and I did, like, this is, I'm not sure I would recommend people to do this, but I've done this twice and this is the first time I did that. I went home to my girlfriend. I had a meeting with my manager at lunch, actually, and she said, no, you're not going to get this role, but you can continue doing what you're doing, which was, I had sort of already started taking on parts of that role while still doing my other job. So I was extra stressed. And I felt like, I can't live like this. So I went home to my girlfriend and I said, if I quit my job tomorrow, what do you think? And she said, yeah, do it. And so I came in, I actually had 3 months notice, but I said, I'm just working till the end of February, because this was the beginning of February. I'm working till the end of February. I promise I will, make sure that everything is documented and well planned, but I'm not staying longer than February. And they were like, okay, yeah, sure. And I was like, sign this paper. It's my resignation. And I think they were shocked, especially at how fast it was, because it was like from one day to another. I was just like, I'm leaving. And then I went back to university to finish up some things that I had not finished at that point.
Okay.
Because I'd got so caught up in politics, I've actually not finished my education. So I went back. And while I was doing that, I also started working with a friend of mine who has a company who does training. And I helped him like develop training and make it more interesting and kind of, make it specific to different clients. So it's not just like a generic, this is what we sell, but sort of how do we make this custom without, too many crazy things.
Right.
We also did some video and I did some marketing with him and some lots of different fun stuff. But that's the good thing about working in a really small organization, because I went from a 3,000 person organization to a 2-person organization.
Yep.
And the freedom and the speed in which decisions are made.
Yes.
Very different. Very, very different. And so I'm like, I have an idea. Let's do a video. And he's like, yeah, can you do that? And I'm like, yeah.
Why not?
Why not?
How hard can it be?
But that is true. That is the motto that has gotten me through life. It's like, I want to do this. How hard? Let me try.
Right.
I mean, the worst thing that happens is
it doesn't work, and that's it.
And I'll be no worse off than I am now.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that wasn't a very, like, once I finished studying, that was just part-time. I felt like, okay, I want to get into like a proper L&D department. I want a proper role in L&D. So I applied for some jobs, ended up in a government-owned company called Samhall.
Oh, wow.
Which has about 25,000 employees all over Sweden. And the thing with them is that it's a government organization because it helps people with disabilities get back into the work market and helps them learn different ways of, working and different skills, and also just navigating like work and like being a part of this unspoken like book of rules that is how you are expected to function as a person
in the workforce.
Yeah, exactly. So just navigating being part of the workforce. And so I like that it was not just like I would have trouble like selling telephones because people don't actually need them, but this felt like it's like a real need.
Right.
Real thing. And so when I got into that, I was just doing classroom training.
Okay.
And I was like I guess developing and like redoing a lot of the training that they had. Because they had a very like lecture based type of training, and by then I had learned enough about learning, some things that I don't believe anymore, but enough to feel like I had a grip on what learning is and how to make it happen. I actually had learning style training at a university, 2013.
Nice.
And so that I was heavily influenced by that. You know, it's kind of hard to look back at and be like, huh, that was real. That was science. That was fact.
Yeah.
That was fine. And now it's like, meh, stars. You believe in that? Do you believe in witches as well?
Yeah.
Like tooth fairy.
And it's
But
amazing.
It wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't that long ago. And the fact that it comes down to close reading.
Yeah.
That's what a lot that you find out along the way, that somebody has published a study, and then other people who I want to say supposedly read it. And the reason I say that is because they're the ones who pulled the context from it and say, oh, this is what they said. This is what, you know, the conclusion of the study is. And then it always takes so much longer for people to be skeptical enough and curious enough to go read it themselves.
Yeah.
And then you start getting the backlash of, actually, this person didn't say it was definitive. They just suggested it could be, but more study is needed. Or there is a theory, it wasn't a real methodology. And so that's always fun to come to later to go, oh.
Yeah, but I mean, there are a lot of studies that were done on learning styles, or the done and done model of learning styles, which is what I studied.
Yeah.
That doesn't prove that there are learning styles, only proven that with their framework tested in different types of classrooms, it gave better results. And it didn't mean that it had anything to do with how the brain works, or how we're made, or how we're created, right, or how we learn. It's just that somehow they had stumbled upon things that work. And so, like, I still bring with me like a lot of the ways of creating training and ways of building training.
Oh, yeah. There's still value with it. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So,
I also think that's important, because sometimes people are like, okay, so learning styles training, we throw that out the window, we go back to lecturing. And I'm like, no.
Oh my gosh.
That's not, it's just, we can't tell people that their brains work like that, because they don't.
Right.
We don't know that. We actually
know better that that's not scientifically proven. However,
but that
there
you can see results from doing things this
Exactly.
way, which means it's a valid way of trying to create training.
Exactly.
And you know, that is not like so like having different methodologies, or you know, having people more involved in training, that does work.
Right.
And so I think also maybe that was because I was really reluctant to let go of learning styles for a while, because I was like, but it's working. Like, I'm creating this training and it's working so well. Like, and then I was like, oh yeah, I don't have to stop creating training this way. I just have to let go of this idea of
right.
Okay, that's easier. I can do that. But no, but anyway, so I got into that. I started creating a lot of content, a lot of different materials. And pretty quickly, I was like, could we make a video about this? Could we make does this have to, because everything was classroom. Everything was classroom.
Yeah.
And it's all over the country, right? And Sweden is small population, but big in terms of like area covered.
Right.
And so we were traveling like 2 to 3 days a week.
Wow.
Doing classroom training all over Sweden.
That's a lot.
Lots of train the trainer, and like follow up, and a lot of like, you know, panic fixing, right? So just like putting out fires and we have this client and we have to have this everyone who works there has to have this training, and they're starting in 2 weeks, and you will have to sort of pack your bags and go to Luleå and like oh
my gosh,
do training for 2 weeks to make sure that didn't fall through, because there were no local trainers there. And it was crazy, and I kept going like, well, could we make a video? Could we do this maybe? Because we did have a video conferencing system with video conference rooms all over the company already.
So
that infrastructure was actually there 2014. I mean, not super great, but it did work. We did have online meetings all the time with people from all over the country. So I was like, we have this technology, why aren't we using it? Yeah. And so they were like, yeah, well, we'll talk to our marketing department and they can make video. And they made beautiful videos, by the way, but they didn't have time to make videos for us. We were not a priority in any way. And
sounds
and so I was like, how hard can it be? I'll make some video. And
Why
so
not? Yeah.
and I didn't have any tools. I didn't have anything. I continued using Webinaria, which I had been using for the other stuff, and the microphone that I had bought for myself to do with the political stuff. And
Perfect.
I used the PowerPoint template, and I just created like 2 or 3 minute videos for the trainer to shorten the time it took to train a new trainer. And because all of the updates we've done, we needed now to train the trainers to change how they did the training, right? And so that was a big like thing, and we tried to create like content around that and our ideas about learning and why this is important and etc.
Nice.
And people were like, you can do that? And I was like, apparently. And then, you know, after a while I was like, well, okay, so the marketing department doesn't have time to help us, but hey, they're not using their cameras every day. So I go over there and like, hey, can I borrow a camera?
Yeah.
And it's like, who are you? And then, oh, okay, yeah. Sure.
I guess so. Just make sure you bring it back.
Yeah. Do you know how it works? Like, and at first I didn't get to use the good camera. I got to use like the not the camera.
Of course, yeah.
But in the end, you know, I was running there, borrowing microphones and video lights and lots of cameras and anything that I could get my hands on, trying to create content from like nothing, right?
Gosh.
Just thin air. And there was no LMS, and they were talking about it. They were like, yeah, we've been planning to buy an LMS for so long. We don't have one. And then I think 2015, 16, I started doing train the trainer via video.
Yes.
Because it was like they were already trainers, but they were sort of stepping up a level. So it wasn't like the basic training. So I was like, and it didn't feel like it didn't need an entire day. Yeah. And so we started doing that, and I felt like that's not quite enough. So we started doing it blended, and we just used the shared folder, and I put some videos there of me talking and some PowerPoint videos and a workbook, and then we did the virtual training, and then they had to do like we had a video of a scenario that I brought in a colleague, and we did a scenario where everything goes wrong, and they had to sort of write down how to fix it. Nice. And send that in, and that was how we would say if they pass or not. And so we were starting doing that with no system, right? Because I'm like, I'm not waiting. I can't wait, because I mean they got their LMS 2020. Yeah. So I mean, if you had waited.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So this was 2015, 16. And so I think 2016, the like top people of the management of the company decided that we are creating an onboarding program for managers. And it's going to be blended, and it's going to be digital. And we were like, well, we don't have an LMS, and we don't have a system, and we don't have a platform, and we don't have any ideas on how do we get extra budget for this? And it was like, no. And so my manager basically came to me, and she's like, hey, you're going to be part of this work group to figure this out.
Nice. Okay.
No problem. And I'm like, yeah, sure. I had already suffered from burnout at that stage, so I was kind of trying to do different things because I couldn't really travel as much because I didn't feel good. So it was a good opportunity to sort of both for me to find other things to do, as well as I was probably the only one in the group who wouldn't run scared and you know, go hide if someone said, hey, you're creating digital blended training from nothing. Right. So
challenge accepted.
Yeah. No, it was just like, I mean, for good and bad, I kind of always accepted that if you tell me I have to do this, I do. So I'm going to figure out how to do it. I'm not going to question whether we should do it or not. Right. Questioning whether we should do it or not is something I learned more recently. And it's a valuable skill. I should have learned that long ago. But at this case, they were like, jump. And I was like, how high? And so they were like, you're creating blended learning. Or not just me, but our department. Yeah. And so we were having these meetings, and I was thinking back to sort of the things I had made in
Yeah.
my political like environment.
Right.
And we had just used web pages and embedded YouTube videos and had like documents of texts and, you know, nothing interactive or anything, but still
Right.
like all the content, right? In a format, it was guided, it was, you know, step by step.
Yeah.
And we could use things like Microsoft Forms for like making sure people had understood things, quizzes, whatever. So they were like, so I was like, maybe we can just do that.
Right.
And
And
they were like, can you do that? Like, yeah, maybe. I mean,
we'll see.
And they were, and it turned out that we had the possibility of creating SharePoint sites. And when I'd been an administrator, I'd been a SharePoint administrator for the intranet of my previous job. So I was comfortable with SharePoint. So what I basically built between 2015-16 and 2020 was a fake LMS, I call it. Like we had probably 20 to 30 blended or digital courses
in there. Hey, you have to work with what you have.
Yeah. And I created absolutely everything. Like I got some help from the marketing department to get like some nice like buttons and headers and things to make it look correct and nice, but everything else I did myself. And I just figured it out, watched a lot of YouTube, experimented, asked people, like went online, just figure it out. And it was very appreciated. Like the organization, who had not had anything else and did not have anything to compare it to, liked it. And it was very like, if you'd compare it to anything, it feels kind of like Rise. Yeah. Like a Rise course. Okay. We created as one web page because it is scrollable, right? You just keep scrolling. Right. And then you can use like some HTML code to make sure that you can, and have some symbols to sort of show where you are, and you can jump between them. Wow. Like that. So, and I don't actually write code, I Google code. But that takes you far. I should say, it takes you very far. If you just need little things
I laugh because I've done that. Where I'm going, I need something else on the back end. And so I know where to place it because I can at least read. Yeah, I can read the code. Yeah, I can decipher. That I can decipher exactly and go, okay. I don't know what exactly. And I would go Google it till I found it and be like, okay, copy. This is where it needs to be embedded, paste it in. Oh, it does what it's supposed to do. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Trial and error. So but that is, you said you do how hard can it be and it backfires, but that is a perfect example of how hard can it be, I think. Right. It's just like an error, sometimes. Yeah, I'll just try it. Like the worst thing that can happen is it doesn't work. And anyway, so as this progressed, we did get sort of the recognition from the organization that we needed our own cameras, our own microphones, our own lights, etc. So everything. So while this progressed, we also started going like, because the first videos I made in Windows Movie Maker. Oh wow! But I think that I just date myself, like. But you dated, but it's what was there. Yeah, exactly. That's what I had, and exactly. And then at some point we got Creative Cloud. We did sort of kind of accidentally buy this video streaming service called Dreambroker, where we could upload and embed videos from there, so we didn't have to put them on YouTube or anywhere, worrying about it being like outside of our system. And I just started working with that and experimenting. And the good thing about nobody else knowing how to do it is there's nobody who's going to criticize you, tell you it's bad, because it's whatever it is you do, they could not do that. Right. And I, so at the end of like 2019, 2020, before I quit, I was making videos in Adobe After Effects, like animating how microfiber works. And doing audio files and podcasts and
drawing my own pictures for training, and just like anything, everything, just going crazy with it. Like no apologies, just. And I mean, that's how I learned. And I don't, I mean, yes, I've taken, as I said, some LinkedIn courses here and there, and I've, gone back to university for a little freshen up, and I buy lots of books, and I read most of them, or at least parts of them.
But, just get me to the point that I need.
Yeah, and I also just take a lot of inspiration from like social media, YouTube, LinkedIn, like what do people gravitate towards? What do they like? And I just have this curiosity, I guess, about like software and how it works. And so when I quit, once again, it was one of those, from one day to another, I just realized like I have to leave this place and do something else.
Yeah.
And I did.
And what was that?
And so that actually, I quit before I knew what I was going to do instead. So I didn't know I was going to start my own company the day I quit. That was one of the options I was considering. But I was also considering going back to university, or maybe somewhere else. Right. I just knew in my gut, like I am not in the right place right now. And it's
good that you listened to that.
I have been fighting this feeling for a while now.
Yeah.
Because it is a good job and it's safe and it pays well and it's
right.
But I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. Yeah. And I wasn't doing what I'm good at. At some point I felt like I am not being used to my full potential here.
Right.
While being used might not sound like a very nice thing. If I am going to be used, I want to be used for what I'm good at. So,
yes.
And so I quit and considered my options, and talked to some friends and talked to people in my network, and decided to start my own company. Kind of, not necessarily caring if it was very successful or not.
Yeah, just more that it allowed you to do whatever you wanted to do, and how you wanted to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, apart from personal mottos, so I have the how hard can it be, but the other one is a job I don't want, I can always get. Yeah. So a bad job that you hate. Yeah. There is always one of those for you.
They do exist
somewhere there. Yeah. It might, I don't know what it is for you, but a job that you hate, or a manager you hate, you can always find that. You don't have to do that now. Yeah. You can do that later. That is always an option. So don't do it now.
I love that thinking. That's it really comes down to the mindset. I mean, it's something that I figured this out similar to you, just also way before COVID. And it comes down to, what are your priorities? What kind of lifestyle do you want? How can you make that happen and make that the priority over the work, and try to get everything else to fit in for that lifestyle that you want. And so therefore you are not chained to whatever job you have. And so I know that has changed overall, just because of the way life has gone. And now everyone's like, oh my gosh, this new generation, they're hopping around. But the reason for that change, at least for me, which sounds similar to you, is going, okay, I know I need this and it's fulfilling to a degree. And like you said, it's more safe than anything else. But do I have to continue this? Yeah. It's not allowing me, I love how you said it, allowing me to fulfill my potential. Yeah. I know I have more. They're not seeing it. They're not willing to use it. So why am I holding myself back as well? Yeah. That's but it's a thinking, and not everybody has that understanding or mindset. Or if they realize it, sometimes because it's so scary at the beginning, you're not willing to make the leap.
But you don't have to take the leap immediately. You can plan it out way better than I did.
Well, and it doesn't necessarily mean leaving 100% or starting your own business. I mean, it can mean all sorts of other things. Like you mentioned, like, okay, I'm going to go back to university, or it could mean just completely switching to a different role, maybe still within the organization. There's different aspects to it.
But I do feel like when we talk about this, because it gets very aspirational and everyone can do it and it's mindset and I just want to talk about privilege when we talk about that, because the ease in which you can just go, I'm going to change my life is very different depending on where you're starting.
That is very true. I'm so glad you're mentioning that.
Educationally, you're in the US. I know you don't have universal health care, which means that quitting your job and starting your own company is terrifying because you don't have health.
Yeah.
Whereas in Sweden, we have universal health care. I never worry about that. I don't even think about that. Right? I don't have kids. I have nobody depending on me making money.
Right.
I don't have a lot of student loans because education is free.
Yes.
So I don't have a lot of debt, and I don't have a house or a car or anything that I'm paying off. I'm in a relationship that's very stable with someone who makes good enough money for us to survive on should this venture fail.
Right.
I have savings, and I also I can get, if my company fails, I can get unemployment within 3 months.
So if you're in the US, we just need to move to Sweden.
When I go, I'm just leaving. Maybe you shouldn't do that because you're not in that point of privilege, and that's not safe for you.
No. Yeah, I'm definitely not vouching to do the one day to the next.
Yeah, no, but I just mean that when we say you can do anything you want, from where you stand, I think you can make changes, right? With the mindset, you can move towards something.
Right. But
how far you can get and how quickly you can get there will definitely depend on
those variables.
On the variables, and they might not all be
aligned for that. Yeah. But my big thing is the mindset.
Yeah.
It's just, that is not an easy thing to do. And to be able to get yourself to get to that understanding.
Yeah.
To go, okay. Yes, there are those variables you are definitely going to have to consider and take into account before making any rash decision. But that change of mindset is so huge in changing your perspective that it can open up a lot of things for you, and for you to go, I'm not trapped like I think I am. And then being able to take those next steps to look around you and go, okay, what else can I do? How can I adjust? How can I make changes? Like you said, does it mean leaving here? Yeah, that's a huge drastic thing. Yeah. But it can free your mind up to your circumstances, especially if you're really down and it's just, been there, done that, where it can be a toxic environment.
Yeah.
And just to be able to give yourself that permission to go, I don't have to continue taking this.
No, absolutely. Now that is fair.
Yeah.
And I mean, yes, you should always consider your options. And
absolutely. Please.
You have options. There are situations like when you perhaps do not have options, at least not immediately. But most of the times, most of us have some kind of option.
Yeah.
If we just look at that.
Right.
And I would also say, another thing, if I'm going to give advice, stop asking for permission. I never asked if it was okay if I started making training videos or not for my company that didn't do digital learning.
Yeah.
One day I was just like, hey, I created this video. Do you want to see it? Yeah. Nice, isn't it? I'm going to make another one. And the worst thing that could have happened was they would have been like, this is a really crappy video. I would be like,
right.
Okay, I'll try and make another one and get back to you.
And that's that gorgeous mindset that you have again. It's pushing that, right? And that's what's so wonderful, because I tend to do, probably not to the extent you do, but I have that similar walk of going, okay, I would rather do it, go through with it, ask the question, whatever it is, and actually get a definitive answer of yes or no. And if it's no, okay. Yeah. Now I know, and I can make a different action or a different choice, but you just never know if it's yes. And that's the amazing part, is unless you put yourself out there. Yeah. And in your case, you know what, I'm just going to make this video because I know it's needed. it's always wonderful. And they get that.
And it's, I mean, just remember also, like when you're considering the quality of what you're making, it just has to be better than what you're already doing.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be as good as, I don't know, what Microsoft is doing, or what
right. No,
organization or these instructional designers with all these tools and all this training. It just has to be better than what you're already doing, and you can sort of level up slowly. So don't compare yourself to them. Like, just go, where are we now and how can we level up just a little bit?
Yes.
And so even if your PowerPoint video is perhaps not going to change the world, in an organization where nobody does video, that was revolutionary. In the world, it was not. But where I was at that point, yes, it was. So I think that because, you know, we tend to set the bar so high that we don't even jump. Because we see it and we're like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not. And I mean, but the thing is, if you had jumped, you know, a little higher every time, at some point, maybe you would have, right? You don't know. And you won't know until you try. But of course, if you go like, I'm going to create just as great learning as someone who has all this resource and all these tools and all this training and all this support.
Right.
With nothing, with no support, with no training, with no tools. And if I don't do that, I'm bad. I suck. Of course, that's not going to work. Like that's going to fail. So, and you're going to be very discouraged from trying again, because failing, that is also because, yes, we do need to learn from failing and be positive about failing, seeing failing as
of course,
And also putting yourself up for failing is unkind to you and not helpful.
Right. I agree with that one as well.
Try to set yourself up for success. And if you fail, fine, learn, but don't put yourself in a situation where you are bummed.
You're already,
Nobody needs that.
Oh my goodness. That is so perfect, Linnéa. You and your, I would say, from the experience you've had, and regardless, trial and error, I would say that combination with how you see the world, you know, with your motto, it's such great information that you're imparting to us. I just love it. I know you're like, oh, it's some advice. No, this is like amazing advice. This is so fantastic.
Well, that's good.
Oh, I have no doubt those listening in can grasp something really good from here that you can immediately apply. And that's really exciting, because if anything, and you already know this, you know, the journey, as messy as it can be, I mean, it leads to something so beautiful, and it leaves, and I don't mean just like for the future and looking onward, but looking back even, because you're able to see those pieces and put things together. And
no, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, it's also like this idea of never being finished. Nothing is ever finished, right? I keep learning, I keep progressing, I keep making better things. And maybe in 10 years, I'm going to look back at what I did now. Be like, oh my God, I can't believe it. You know, how could I possibly think that was a good idea? Oh my God, he was beyond anyway. That's horrible. Like, I don't know. We don't know, because we don't have the looking like the magic into the future. But it works now. And so I want to quickly, just because I didn't tell you about the next step, because I did quit and then I did.
Oh, okay. Continue.
So I just want to kind of super quickly get into that. So I have been networking all my life, because at some point someone told me that's really important, and I was like, okay, if you say so, I'll just keep in touch with everyone I've ever worked with, and I'll go to networking events, and I'll introduce myself to strangers. And you know, I'm not afraid to talk to people, because I would rather talk to all of them on a stage, so I'm fine. And when I started my own company, that was very helpful. That meant that there was a lot of people I could ask for help and advice about starting my own company. That was how I found my first clients, was people in my network, like ex-colleagues and people I've been networking with. And also expanding my network, like not being happy with that, but finding things like the GLDC, like other types of communities. where you meet other people and get new ideas and inspiration and things like that. And also, as I said, once again, I am very privileged. I don't have to work and get paid full time to be able to sustain myself having my own company. So
Right.
I can put aside like 30% of my time for learning and exploring and
Nice.
staying up to date. And that's also why, I mean, I have the YouTube channel and the blog.
Mm-hmm.
So both are in Swedish. There is some English content on the YouTube channel.
Yes, there is. Yeah.
But it's mostly in Swedish, but there are English subtitles.
Titles.
So if you really want to see it, you can.
Yeah. Nothing stopping.
Yeah, maybe if you're really tired, don't just turn the audio off and just watch the subtitles. I feel like sometimes that's easier if you're tired than listening to the Swedish while trying to reading the subtitles. But anyway, like that is part of why I'm doing that, because I remember being back in my L&D role that I had before I started my company, and how hard it was for me to find the time to explore.
Right.
And how I was desperate for tools, like free tools, cheap tools, any tools, or like, I know there is a way to do this, but I don't know what it's called, and I don't know how to Google it, and I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
And so now that I have that time, I also want to share that with
fantastic.
everyone who, you know, with the whatever the past me would have needed. Like I'm trying to provide to whoever is needing it right now.
That's fantastic. And so that leads to a beautiful segue, Linnéa. I'm curious to know what tools or resources, and I know there were a ton out there for you, but if there's any like very specific that comes to mind that helped you along the journey, like was there a book that really stood out to you, or someone, I guess, that had maybe a free webinar, or I don't know, YouTube, someone that you followed? I mean, the sky's the limit. I mean, there's just so many ways to get resources, but was there maybe one or two or a handful that you're like, oh my gosh, I did this LinkedIn learning and this propelled me in this way? Or I don't know.
Not really.
No.
I mean, I can't pinpoint. I mean, as I said, when I did the learning styles training 2013, that was very
impactful for you.
At that point. Even if that might not be a valid theory now, it got me thinking about learning as something
which is important.
And trying to figure out how that happens and how we can, you know, facilitate and make that easier and make sure that there is actual learning happening.
Nice.
And so that was, I guess, very transformational for me. And then I did, it's a Swedish university course about like adult learning theory. Yeah. Which was also super helpful, because that's not something they teach you anywhere. One thing that was, as a classroom trainer, one of the most impactful things we ever did was at my first training job, where it was just part-time. They had us in for a conference and they filmed us doing 10-minute training, and then they made us watch it with the rest of the group. And that was maybe the most insightful 10 minutes of my life. Just seeing everything you do and like, do I do that? How often do I say that? Like, why am I using this word all the time? Same thing with starting to film yourself, like for training videos.
Oh my gosh.
Editing your own voice, editing your own face. And but I think, I mean, I don't know exactly when it happened, but I think the biggest and most important insight for me when it came to learning was, it's not about me. Like, I have this performer mentality, right, that I started with. And kind of backing away from that and being like, yes, you can be the performer, and sometimes that's a good thing, and you can absolutely use that as a tool in training sometimes, but that is not what's going to lead to learning. Like, they're going to leave happy, but is something going to happen? And just like stop thinking about what I like and what I want and what excites me, and thinking about my learners and where are they and what do they need and where are they. And I don't know exactly what you know made me shift, but that was a very impactful moment.
Well, I've no doubt, especially from listening to you and your story, I would say, aside from the general aspects of having those classes that you went to university and the tools that came with it, or the books and things that you did on your own in addition. But I see you as one that through your own trial and error of finding your way, if anything, that really sharpened and honed in, I think, more of who you are now as this professional. And that in itself, I mean, that's an anecdote in itself. I mean, you don't necessarily need to name anything else. It's just a combination in general of you obtaining knowledge and then applying it. So
and I think the trial and error thing, because when we talk about learning, we know that theory is not enough, right? We know that actually applying what you've learned, trying it,
putting things into practice,
that is what's going to lead to your actual learning. So I would say whatever, like of all the things I've read, I only probably remember the things I tried.
Yes. Yep. I agree with that.
So if you want to learn something, like I would say, like try to plan. Like I was talking to an ex-colleague of mine, and she needed to learn how to do video editing, and she's like, I've got the license, I've got all summer, I have no motivation whatsoever. I keep, I've found all these LinkedIn learning courses, I've seen all this video, but I don't know where to start. And you were talking about like where to start in general, and I was like, don't start with learning, start with the project, decide what you're going to make. It's something easy, like it doesn't have to be like make a vacation video, like or a graduation video for your kid with like pictures from their child. I don't care, just choose something tangible, something that can be finished, something that can be shown off to someone else, and then learn how to do that. And that way, I mean, it's like I work with all these tools, and I'm like, I don't know if I could teach these tools, because I only know what I want to know. I only know what I've been figuring out. So like if you take Adobe Creative Cloud, right, which is this amazing and frustrating software. But I work in After Effects, right, with animation mostly, not a lot. But there are so many things you could do with After Effects, like with like real video, etc. I have no idea how to do that. I have not even tried. So while I work in After Effects, I couldn't teach you After Effects. Right,
because you're just focused on what it is that you're needing.
But the day that I have a video and I need to do this thing in After Effects, that day I will figure out how to do that in After Effects. Because I'm trying to learn that now, I'm going to forget it because I don't know.
Of course, because you're not using it. So perfect. I love it. So for those of you that wanted advice and such, you just got some more there. So that was so well done, Linnéa. I can't.
And if you're listening to this and you want to reach out, you can either on mygldc.com or on LinkedIn. That's fine. Just get in touch. And
perfect. I was going to ask you that next. What were the, I think like Twitter handles and things like that. Like how can we follow you connect with you in the social media world these days?
So I already told you I have a YouTube channel, so you can go and follow that and comment. And I also take like wishes. So if you want a specific video on something, it is very probable that if you ask, I will make you a video about that. And then I have a blog. It's in Swedish, but I do give out a lot of training advice there. I have this funny ongoing series about the no budget learning department and how far you could get with just free tools, and like what tools would be available for all the different kinds of things you would do in an L&D department. And then I do have a Twitter handle. It's pedagogiska Nia. So you don't know how to spell that. But if you do go to my LinkedIn profile, which is just my name, you'll find a link to that. And you can go that way. And I have a webpage also in Swedish, but I am very active on LinkedIn, way more than I am on Twitter. And then, of course, mygldc.com. I am the co-organizer, so I have to push that, no matter the context at this point. And it's a good cause. And just because that is also like, if you're looking to get into L&D, I feel like networks like the GLDC or Teach Dev Learn for if you're transitioning from teaching classroom to going into L&D, like there are so many great places and communities
Yes.
where you can learn and get the support, because sometimes, gosh, we're rounding this up and I keep talking. I'm so sorry.
It's too good information, so you don't get cut off.
You let me go.
Continue.
Okay.
Yes.
No, but what I would say is sometimes the reason you're not reaching your goals, you're not getting where you want to be, is not because you don't have the skills or the potential. It's because you don't have the support.
Yes.
You don't have someone in your life who believes in you, or who encourages you, or who has been through something similar and can relate, who can just sort of point you in the right direction, cheer you on, give you feedback. Like, if you don't have those people in your life, it is very hard to get where you want to go. And so these kinds of networks will give you that. So if you don't have that in your life already, or you feel like nobody understands what I'm going through, I don't know who to ask, I don't know who to talk to, I don't know, how do people even do this? Like, find one of these communities or several and get to know real people. And because people in L&D are like the nicest people I know all over the world.
Yeah. Everybody's willing and wanting to help.
Yeah.
So
super helpful. We don't really, there's not a lot of feeling of competition. Like, I don't feel like you're my competition.
No, it's genuinely trying to help each other be better. It's that iron sharpening iron situation. And that's really nice and refreshing, especially coming from, some not so great, corporate world situations, and then being able to get with your tribe.
Yeah.
It's so fantastic like that. Oh, I love it, Linnéa. I'm so glad you mentioned that. Beautiful. So I guess with that, I'm going to go ahead and conclude us on today's episode. Linnéa, I cannot thank you so much. I mean, I just cannot thank you enough for all that you've shared.
You're welcome.
I know that you're like, oh, but it was not, I don't care. It was gorgeous. It was wonderful. I mean, there's just so much that you imparted as far as knowledge and advice, but your story is so fantastic to listen to, just in general. I mean, clearly I'm inspired, but I'm hoping, although I have a feeling there's no reason to worry, but people out there being able to listen and, or watch, in the case of the video, to see what you've done and how you've done it, to know that they can also do that. And to wrap it up with the fact that, you do need people to believe in you.
Yeah.
I can't agree more. And I think that's such a critical piece that sometimes gets forgotten.
It's like, you could do it on your own. It's like, actually, no, nobody does.
No, it's well, and that's something to always be considerate about, that even if you're the kind of person that thinks you know everything, or you can pick up on things or whatever, the reality is, at the end of the day, you still need someone to bounce off the ideas, to make sure it makes sense what you're trying to create and put out there. And, even if you think, you know what, it's really not bad to humble yourself a little bit and reach out, because you have people that really are going to understand you. Okay, humble yourself a lot. Let's go with what Linnéa says.
Just because you have no idea how arrogant you actually are. Like, I have no idea how arrogant I actually am. I mean, looking back, I cringe at how arrogant I have been at different points in my life, even if I'm nice about it. So just always remember that, like, no matter how much you know, you basically know nothing. And always be willing to be schooled. And if someone wants to give you harsh criticism,
take it. Take it.
Don't just take it. Thank them. Thank them for being honest. Thank them for taking the time to give you the feedback. Because a lot of people will tell you things are great when they're not. People pleasing, etc. So if someone takes the time to be brutal with you, that is a gift. Just take it.
That is true.
Just swallow it.
Be grateful for that they're willing to do that, because there's too many folks that will flip the other side and just cheer you on and blindly. So you don't want that. You want that balance of really honing in. I'm so grateful for you, Linnéa. Thank you so much for all of this information. Yes, it's so good. And I'll have, for those of you listening in, and if you depending where you're listening to, but if you come back to the Stepping Stones webpage, I will be having listing of some of the information that Linnéa, just like our other fellow L&Ders, have shared with us. So if you're curious to know a little bit more or tap into getting to know exactly her and her ways, regardless that information on her blog and on her YouTube might be in the English language, I highly recommend that you still go check it out. It's just fantastic what you're doing in the world and your impact, and keep continuing on with that, Linnéa. It's just,
thank you. Yeah,
I love what you're doing. I really do. It's really inspiring. And so we'll have to touch base at another time to see how things
Apparently I could
continue
talk
with
forever.
Well, not just for talking, but just, listening in on even more of, how the journey has progressed,
Yeah, hopefully I will keep learning. So there will be something to say.
Yes. Well, and that's something we just all need to be doing as a whole. And that's what makes, I think, L&D and what we do that much greater, just because we're choosing to have that mindset to continue our own venture and learning. So wonderful. Thank you, Linnéa, so much. To my listeners and viewers, until next time, continue stepping onward. Thank you all so much.
Bye.
Bye.